The zoom tool lets you zoom in and out by clicking and dragging a rectangle. It will zoom into the specific size of that rectangle that you created. If you just click, it will zoom in. If you right click, it will zoom out. If you right click and drag a box, it will zoom out also, so that doesn't really matter. But if you left click and drag a box, then it will zoom into that box. It also, along the top here, will give you options. Zoom levels, you can zoom to fit, which will zoom to anything that you've got here, to page, which we can't really see the page border. If we clicked on this, you'd see that it's zoomed to the page border. You can zoom to width, which is going to zoom just to make sure that everything fits in the width of the page. Again, you don't see that really. To height is to the height of the page. And then these are just percentages so that you're zoomed in a certain percent. Again, you can just click on these buttons, or if you had something selected, you can click on Zoom to Selected or Shift F2, and it will zoom into whatever you have selected. This one, Zoom to all objects. I use this most often, and it's F4 on the keyboard. Some keyboards, the function keys actually double as other keys. So specifically on the Surface keyboard, for instance, you have to make sure that the function option is highlighted. So in the lower left hand corner of your keyboard is an FN button. You'd click that and make sure that the light is lit up, and that way the function keys will work, instead of doing things like changing the volume and brightness and that sort of stuff. Zoom to page width. These are just buttons that do the same thing as the drop down here. I usually use my mouse wheel to zoom. I can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel. If you want to do it at a little bit finer increments, you can hold Shift while you do that. If you hold Control, it will go to the right and left, and if you hold Alt, it'll go top to bottom as panning instead of zooming. With your mouse wheel also, if you click on the mouse wheel, it turns into a hand or pan, and then you can just pan around that way. If you aren't in the Zoom tool, you can get to it by hitting Z on the keyboard. Or sometimes an even better thing to do is if you hit F2, it will switch to what's called a one-shot zoom, where you can zoom in and then it'll automatically go back to the tool that you were using before. So if I was using the rectangle tool, for instance, and hit F2, I could zoom in and it would go back to the rectangle tool. If I'm in text, hit F2, zoom in, and then it goes right back into the text tool. F4 again to zoom back out to everything.